What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot to get to in the world of volleyball. Such as the NCAA men's volleyball season starting this week. Who will be the favorite to win it all, or will UCLA three-peat? Also, the NCAA women's volleyball transfer portal has been really heating up. Lots of notable names and lots of players have entered the transfer portal, and some have even found a new home. Who are these players, and where have they transferred off to? Also, Pro Volleyball Federation and LOVD starts this week, or next week for that matter, as I'll be previewing just a little bit in terms of both of those leagues. And also, we're going to be recapping some of the most notable moments from the NCAA men's and women's volleyball, as well as the first Set Point altogether. The Hammer Volleyball, that's the next. None of us still gets volleyball action here on Set Point. It's Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on iSports Radio, your feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday morning, Monday evening, Monday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you've made your way to episode 279 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let's begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without iSports Radio providing the platform to go live on Spreaker or StreamYard for that matter. Please do follow iSports Radio on several different social media platforms such as X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Also, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. We would definitely appreciate it. We're trying to reach 500 subscribers by the end of January. And with your help, we can make it happen. Also, make sure to follow us on other podcast platforms such as iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Spotify, JioSaavn, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and much more. And check out our website, iSportsRadio.com, for all of your latest sports news, our blog, our page dedicated to each podcast, such as Set Point, our merchandise shop where you can cop all sorts of t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies for the winter, and much more. Also check out the Hall of Fame where I am actually inducted, and the Hall of Fame voting is actually underway. It's getting into the preliminaries from what I heard, and much more on the iSports Radio website. For the last 10 years, iSports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making iSports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. Before we get on into the volleyball action, we have to give some shout-outs to some of our sponsors, Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, and Vital Apparel. Without any further delay, let's get on into those sponsors.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
That's right, everybody. Definitely check out our sponsors, Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, and Vital Apparel. We greatly appreciate them for being the official sponsors of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. And the way you can follow Set Point on social media is on X, formerly known as Twitter, at set_point.ie, and on Instagram, at set_point.iesr. And you can follow me, the host, personally on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Teran Rodriguez 1. Without any further delay, let's get on into the volleyball action. For the last time in 2024, this is going to be a fun show. Let's talk some NCAA men's volleyball as well. This week begins the 2025 NCAA men's volleyball season. So, for starters, the ABCA preseason top 20 poll was just released. So, flashing it on the ticker will be flashing it on the bottom. No surprise that UCLA is atop the polls, but Long Beach State did garner a first place vote. It was the only other team that garnered a first place vote. Then you got UC Irvine at 3. They return Hilaire Heno. 4 is Hawaii. That's a promising team right there. 5, Ball State. That team looks very promising with its returnees. Then you got BYU and USC at number 6 and 7, even though USC was chosen to finish ahead of BYU in the MPSF. Then you got Penn State at 8, Grand Canyon at 9, which could be promising this season. I know they lost a few to graduation and they lost Cam Thorne to UCLA, but still, Matt Worley does his thing. And then number 10 is Pepperdine, then so on and so forth. A team that I'm surprised isn't in the top 10 is Loyola Chicago, because they have one of the more electrifying top players in Parker Van Buren. So I'm hoping that for their sake, they can maybe turn some heads a little. And then if you haven't noticed, or if you didn't see earlier, the Big West Conference has all 6 teams in the top 20. You even got UC San Diego, UC Santa Barbara, and CSUN all in the top 20 as well, which I think is pretty cool. And then same can be said for the MPSF. They've got 6 teams in the top 20, or the top 20. Unfortunately, Concordia, Irvine, Vanguard, and Menlo aren't in that top 20, but it is what it is. So there you have it right there. Let me know what you thought of the preseason top 20. I think this top 20 is pretty accurate. I mean, you have UCLA and Long Beach State, which kind of can be the the A and B team. And then UC Irvine, I think, can be very enticing as well. So all in all, for the ABCA coaches poll, it's obviously something that needs, it is what it is. I'm not gonna bellyache over it, or I'm not gonna cry wolf over it and whatnot. It's just a preseason poll. Like, the early polls are the worst polls. So all in all, yeah, I think the polls, in my opinion, it's nothing to be discriminated about in terms of, like, if your team isn't like in the top it's not, if they're not in the top 10 or top 15 or whatnot. But I think for the poll, we all know that UCLA and Long Beach State are A and B, and then you got UC Irvine creeping up there. Hawaii, I want to see Hawaii really show everyone that they belong in the top 5. I mean, they're going to be good. Let's keep it a buck. Hawaii will be good in terms of this season, but honestly, I want to see them actually earn it, because they did lose quite a bit to graduation, but they do return Tread Rosenthal and they do return Louis Sakanoko. So we'll see what happens going forward with them. But all in all, this is pretty much the start of the coaches poll. This is the preseason, so nothing too overly drastic about. All right, but that's that for the top 20. Let's preview some of the Power 4 conferences. So Power 4 conferences. All right. So first and foremost, this week actually is week 1. So I don't know if there's going to be any other like matches, notable matches, but I will also say that for starters, the season begins on Friday, January 3rd. Now, I don't know if there's any other matches that are official. Remember, I don't want to hear anyone saying, well, this team plays this team from Canada. No. I want to see the non-exhibition matches. So, like for instance, Wabash versus Ball State. That is an official match because even though Wabash is Division III, it still counts because those two teams played last year. So those two teams will be kicking off the season unless there are other teams playing on like December or January 2nd or heaven forbid January 1st, which I highly doubt, but I digress. And then Hawaii and McKendree will be facing one another. It's number 4 hosting number 20, which that should be an interesting match. I mean, last year, Hawaii opened up the season against Loyola Chicago, split with the Ramblers. So we'll see if McKendree is up for the task. And then also the two are playing each other on Friday and Saturday. And then on Friday and Saturday, you've got probably the match of the week, BYU playing in Columbus against the Ohio State. Now, I think I know why BYU is scheduling Ohio State because they have ambitions of possibly making it to the NCAA tournament or the National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Tournament because that's the correct vernacular, but I digress. So I think for BYU, if they make the NCAA tournament, which is a possibility. I mean, last year was an unfortunate end because they wound up losing in the first round of the NPSF tournament to the tournament host USC. But for BYU, I think they've got ambitions of making the NCAA or the National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Tournament, but we'll see what happens. Let's go over the Power 4 conferences. That's pretty much all of the matches. That's pretty much to watch for. Also, Ball State plays Trine, which I think is a nice little battle of Indiana right there. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But for now, let's preview some of these Power 4 conferences. So we'll start up east or back east with the EIVA. So as we can see, Penn State is the unanimous number 1 to finish in the EIVA. Then you got NJIT, George Mason, Princeton, Harvard, Charleston, and Sacred Heart. So, yeah, my biggest thing for this conference is, will there be a team that challenges Penn State? That's my big thing right there. Will a team challenge Penn State this season? My thing is, I think maybe, but Penn State, even though they lost so much to graduation, like Toby Ezeonu for starters, I don't know if there's going to be a whole lot challenging that team. They do return Owen Rose, which I think is going to be a key player for them. But honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Penn State pretty much blew by the entirety of the MIVA. I don't think they're invincible, but who's going to challenge them? You know that Penn State was a unanimous decision to win the EIVA when they got all first place votes, and the second best team in said conference is NJIT, and actually second through 5th isn't really separated by a whole lot. So you've got Penn State all the way up top, and then you've got the next best team pretty much right here. And this is no knock on the other EIVA teams. Let's keep it a buck. It's not that the EIVA doesn't hold a candle to them. It's just that Penn State is a cut above the rest because they just seem to have the best players, and they have some of the best players, and they, even when they rebuild, they're always back in they always reload, and they have a bunch of good players. They got Ryan Merck, Michael Schwobe returns. You also got Owen Rose, like I mentioned. Will Coons also returns, and maybe we could be seeing Josh Rosenblum. He did get injured, and he has he's had a lot of tough luck when it comes to injuries. He started out at Long Beach State, then transferred to Penn State, but we'll see if he's able to have a fully healthy season. Then you also got Matt Cosgrove, who I think can definitely make an impact with the Nittany Lions. So all in all, those are some of your notables for Penn State in terms of like their men's volleyball team. Now, again, it's going to be tough to challenge said Penn State team. And I think the best case scenario for all the EIVA teams is NJIT and George Mason and the other teams are just going to have to hope they finish second and third. That way they can avoid facing Penn State until the EIVA tournament final, because no team wants to be playing Penn State at Rec Hall. They are still dominant as ever, and there's not a whole lot of teams that is the answer to stop Penn State at Rec Hall, for that matter. Penn State season does open up next Friday, so not this Friday, but next Friday when they play at Loyola Chicago. They also play Lewis, which I think is pretty cool. So nice little start to the schedule for the Nittany Lions. And they also got Stanford and UCLA in the First Point Collegiate Challenge. Then they've got Ohio State. They've got another UCLA and a UCLA match, and then they've got USC as well. So I think for Penn State, they're trying to get their money's worth and trying to schedule a lot of these really good teams. Now, do I think they're going to be eye-popping? I think so. I mean, Dan Odell one time said it when I interviewed him. When it comes to Mark Pavlik, Penn State is never out of it with Mark Pavlik. So I think for Penn State, they're going to be something. I think this will be one of their more interesting years. They should still be the class of the EIVA, but I just don't know. I'm not fully convinced that they will be a team that goes deep into the NC tournament. Like, at best, they might be a dark horse team, but maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe Mark Pavlik will prove me wrong, but I digress. I mean, there is a little bit of pressure on, okay, maybe not so much pressure, but a little pressure. Mark's wife, Heather, wound up three-peating in the NCAA Division III Women's Volleyball Championship. Penn State Women's Volleyball wound up winning the national championship. So what does Penn State men's volleyball have to offer? And then you also got the football team from Penn State as well. So I want to see Penn State men's volleyball following the success of those teams that I just mentioned. All right, but that's that for the EIVA. Heading down to the Central Coast, we have the MIVA. So Ball State is the unanimous number one. So another unanimous number one. But what I don't understand is this. Loyola Chicago returns Parker Van Buren. He is the preseason player of the year in the MIVA. I don't understand how Loyola did not get one first place vote. Is Ball State just going to be that good? Like, I know they return a good portion of their team from last year. I think that Ball State is going to be a very talented team this season. But my big thing is, will they be able to make a big push? They're kind of in like the Penn State limbo, except I think they'll be slightly better. I don't think they're going to be eye-popping, but I think that's not right. I think Ball State will definitely be eye-popping because they return a good portion of their team, led by Tinashi Indavasocheva. If I mispronounced that, I do apologize. They've also got Patrick Rogers returning, and Donan Cruz is a mastermind when it comes to this whole thing and whatnot. So I think for Ball State, this is going to be, I think they can definitely have a successful season. I just would not sleep on Loyola Chicago. Loyola Chicago is legit. They return a good portion of their team from last year. And the MIVA is so fascinating because it seems like the teams that no one expects to get to the final makes the final. Like, for instance, last year we had Lindenwood, of all teams, making the MIVA final. They could have been a possible bid stealer against Ohio State, but Ohio State had such a dominant team last year. They were not going anywhere. They were not losing. So Loyola Chicago, I definitely could see as a possible team to come out of the MIVA. Then Ohio State, look, let's keep it a buck. Ohio State is not going to be the same team as they were last year. They lost quite a bit to graduation. Like, if anything, last year might have been their best year to win. And unfortunately, with only an 8-team National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Tournament, they were going to get the short end of the stick, especially since they were playing a talented Grand Canyon team in the first round. So I think for Ohio State, I think it's going to be a little bit of a trying year. I think they'll still be up there, but Lewis is going to be up there too. McKendree, I think, can make some noise. Lindenwood can look good. Purdue-Fort Wayne is going to be a little bit of a work in progress just because they have a new head coach. They lost a good portion of their team to graduation and the transfer portal and whatnot. And then Queens and Quincy will be fighting for the final spot of said MIVA tournament. But that's pretty much that for the MIVA. I definitely think Ball State is going to be one of the top teams this year. I think they're a possible dark horse team in terms of like winning the national championship. Do I think they can win it all? That remains to be seen. I want to see Ball State. And unfortunately, the disappointing thing is that they're not playing in the First Point Collegiate Challenge, and it really sucks. They are playing Stanford next week, which I think can definitely be a good challenge. Then they're playing BYU, which is going to be – they're hosting BYU for that matter. So I think that's a good little feather in their cap. But the schedule starts to kind of veer away in terms of like competitiveness. They've played Lees McRae, Maryville, Tusculum, and then they open up MIVA play. But the schedule does get a little bit tougher because midway through their conference schedule, they do partake in the Outrigger Invitational in Hawaii, which they will be playing Hawaii, USC, and Penn State, which I think Donan Cruz is smart for being in. I think he is a genius for wanting to be in the Outrigger Invitational because that's going to definitely help his team out and then some, facing the likes of those teams that I just mentioned. So all in all for Ball State, the schedule, again, it starts off being a little easy. I mean, no offense to Wabash and Trine, but they're playing a really good team. Stanford, they lost a lot to graduation. This is going to be the first time not having someone by the name of Rotman. And then BYU, that's going to be a big challenge. That's going to be their first big test. And it might be their only big test until they play probably Lewis or Ohio State. So maybe even McKendree. But we'll see what happens with Ball State. But let's move on from the MIVA and head out west to the Big West Conference. So this time we don't have a unanimous number one. This time we have Long Beach State garnering 4 first-place votes and UC Irvine garnering 2 first-place votes. Now, UC Irvine is a fascinating team, and this is a storyline that I thought was going to be that I mentioned. And I also mentioned that Loyola Chicago was going to be a nice storyline on if they can be a sneaky good team or if they can make noise. Would UC Irvine be the class of the Big West? My thing is for UC Irvine, I think it's possible. Their only big glaring question mark is the libero position. And they only have one libero on their roster, being Shane Atkin, which I think he could definitely be the guy, but he's a redshirt freshman, so there's going to be some growing pains in that. But they do return Joe Carlos after losing Brett Schuer to graduation. They obviously will return Halir Heno and Will Darcy, Max Grigoriev, and Nolan Flexen. Like, those are some powerhouse players that are returning for UC Irvine. So, again, the only big question mark I have for UC Irvine is the libero position. But other than that, I think that position will be filled eventually. And whether it is Shane Atkin or anyone else, I think UC Irvine is still going to be a very good team to watch. Now, Long Beach State, I still had question marks for. The big question was who's going to be their setter and who's going to be their libero following the graduation of Aiden Knipe and Mason Briggs. Looks like the setter position is finalized with Moki Nikolov, Alex Nikolov's younger brother, but the libero position is still a big question mark. It could be Chris Connolly because he's been with the team the longest. It also could be Kellen Larson, who also is I think he's a freshman, if not redshirt freshman and whatnot. And then they have one other player who will probably be vying for the libero position spot. Those are the notable liberos in terms of like Long Beach State's roster. And then, like I mentioned, Moki Nikolov, he's got a lot to work with. While they did see the graduation of a bunch of good players like Simon Torwey, I think Long Beach State will still be up there in terms of like talent. They've got Skylar LaFarga returning, who was all tournament from the National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Tournament. They've got Sotiris Shapanis, who I think is going to still be dynamite. They've got Darius McRaven. They've got a bunch of other young talent that they're bringing in terms of like not just their roster, but in terms of like returning players that didn't get to see a whole lot of action. Maybe we'll get to see Connor Bloom actually take some swings from the outside instead of just being a standard serving sub. Then we've got Nato Dickinson, who I think he's a good little rotational player. I think he's good like blocking sub and whatnot. So you have him returning into the fold as well. So I think for Long Beach State, they're still going to probably be the class of the Big West, but don't count out UC Irvine. And also don't count out Hawaii. I think Hawaii is a team that if you count out, that's going to be the biggest mistake of your life. Because if you saw my interview with Charlie Wade, well, good for you. And second of all, they've got some good players returning. They've got Elu Choi returning at the libero position. I think he is libero ready. They got Kurt Neuster, who I think is ready and willing at the middle blocker position. I don't know if he'll be the next Guillermo Voss, but I think he can definitely be up there in talent. They've also got Justin Todd returning. He is a redshirt freshman, but we'll get to see time. Also got they have Trev Rosenthal returning. Finn Carney, even though he's a freshman, maybe he'll be starting. Like, this is going to be one of Hawaii's younger teams. They've also got Kai Taylor returning. They've got Luis Sakanoko returning. And this big player right here, this is a notable player who I think is going to be leading this team in kills most likely, if not being the top 2 or top 3. Clay Weeder. He actually transferred from Lindenwood, which that is so big right there for Hawaii. They got a big-time hitter, and I think he's going to make such an impact for this Hawaii team. Like, that might have been the big-time get for Hawaii. Last year, they got the setter from Lewis. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out, so they went with Trev Rosenthal, who still is the youngest team in the on the roster, but obviously he has a year under his belt. He grew to 6'11" from what Charlie Wade told me. So even though his bio has him at 6'9", I get it straight from the horse's mouth, being Charlie Wade. So all in all, Hawaii is going to be a little bit young, but you got to remember they are hosting the Big West Conference Championships. That's something that definitely needs to be noted. And Hawaii, in playing at Hawaii or Simplify Arena, is going to be very scary. And they've still got a strong schedule ahead of them. McKendree, that's a good opponent. Harvard, decent opponent. They play Harvard twice next week. They've also got Princeton. That's a nice opponent. The big test for Hawaii will come on January 31st and February 1st when they play at BYU. That's going to be a fun matchup right there. And they're playing at BYU, mind you. So it's not going to be them welcoming Hawaii to the Big Islands. They're going to be playing in Smith Fieldhouse, and that's a very tough place to play at. Really tough place. Then they've got Stanford. Again, Stanford lost quite a bit to graduation. I don't know how good they're going to be, but maybe they can turn some heads. Then they've got Belmont Abbey. They're playing at Belmont Abbey, so that's a team that made the National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Tournament. Then they've got Queens, Catawba on their docket, which they're actually going to be playing 4 matches in the span of 3 days, starting with Belmont Abbey on the 20th of February. Then the 21st of February, they've got Queens. Then the 22nd of February, they've got Catawba and Queens, which I think it's going to be quite fascinating. And then they open up conference play against UC Irvine. And then after they play UC Irvine, they host Lindenwood, which that's going to be a nice little homecoming for Clay Weeder facing his former team. And then they've got the Outrigger Invitational, which they've got Ball State, Penn State, and USC, 3 really good teams. Then so on and so forth. They got UC San Diego, CSUN, and they'll be hosting UC Irvine. I forgot to mention they're hosting UC Irvine, and they also will be hosting Long Beach State, which I don't know, that crowd could get really packed when it comes to big time matches like that. I could see them having like 10,000 plus in attendance. I could be wrong, but I'm fairly certain Hawaii men's volleyball fans will be showing up big time to those matches. And like I mentioned, they're hosting the Big West Conference Championship at Simplify Arena, so don't be surprised if Hawaii does make a sneaky good. If they have a sneaky good team this year, I think they're a team that's flying so much under the radar that you got to buy stock into this team. I mean, again, they're going to be tested early with McKendree and maybe Princeton and BYU and Stanford, but all these matches are going to get them ready for when they play UC Irvine, and then eventually Long Beach State, because those are the true important matches. Those are the big matches. All right, but that's it for the Big West Conference. I'm going to probably be checking out more often than not the big-time Big West Conference matches, like from UC Irvine and Long Beach State, but I digress. So now to conclude the Power 4 conference previews, we've got the MPSF, which pretty much the unanimous favorite, UCLA, which in my opinion is not surprising. Now, the reason why they're not unanimous, because I think in the MPSF, you can't vote for yourself. So in other words, John Hawks cannot vote for UCLA, Jeff Nygaard cannot vote for USC, Sean Olmstead cannot vote for BYU, Jonathan Winder can't vote for Pepperdine, Matt Worley can't vote for Grand Canyon, so on and so forth. So yeah, you get the point. So the reason why BYU has one first place vote is probably because John Hawks thinks that BYU is going to have a good season, which I can't argue with. BYU is such a good team. They're a very good team. It was unfortunate that they wound up losing in the MPSF first round to USC, but you have to remember, BYU didn't have a match the previous week, and USC had nothing left to lose. They were playing with house money, no pun intended, because they were the hosts of the MPSF tournament. But this is a BYU team that can really make noise. USC, this is a team I would definitely buy stock into. This might be the most underappreciated team out there. This team has so much returning. Like, this is such a good team. Like, they return Austin Stewart, Caleb Blanchett at libero and center. They got Dylan Klein returning. They've got Jack Duker returning for his final year of eligibility. They've got Riley Hain, Wes Smith, Parker Tompkinson comes in. They got Guy Guinness. He and Wes Smith will be a great middle blocker tandem. Sterling Foley, need I say more about him? This dude is dynamite. This dude's electric. USC probably has the team that could at least make it to the tournament, if not this year, next year, and so on and so forth. Like, this is such a stacked team on paper, but I really want to see USC shining when it truly matters, aka the NCAA or the MPSF tournament, if not the make it to the NCAA tournament, or the National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Tournament. But regardless, this is a USC team that I really want to see make some noise this year. I think this team and BYU are the teams that I think can knock off UCLA. I think they're going to be good. Now, looking at USC's schedule, this is probably the team that, again, if I had to give a first place vote to someone other than UCLA, I probably would give it to USC. But looking at USC's schedule, it starts off being a little underwhelming. I mean, they've got Damon to start on January 9th, and then they've got Princeton. Princeton could be a good matchup right there. I think Sam Schweisky, for those that don't know, he loves going on these West Coast road trips, whether it's to play UCLA, Pepperdine, Long Beach State, Concordia, Irvine, the list goes on and on. And that's also partially because the Princeton men's and women's basketball teams are occupying the big gymnasium and whatnot. So yeah, you've got they've got Princeton as their first test. Their schedule is a little, I wouldn't say underwhelming, but they've got CSUN on the schedule. They've got CSUN's another good team, but before that they've got DeUville and Emmanuel. Again, nothing against those teams, but I think USC with that roster can really get it done. And they've got Central State after CSUN. Then they've got the Big Ten Challenge when they play Ohio State and Penn State in Columbus. Now, Penn State, I think, is going to be a good test for them because they're not playing them just once. They're playing them twice. Ohio State could also be a good little test because you never know. And I think this is the Big Ten Challenge is so good to have in Columbus because guess who's hosting the NCAA tournament? Ohio State. It's going to be in Columbus. So if anything, I think that is such a good benefit to have if you're playing Ohio State at Ohio State. And then after USC plays Dominican, they play UC Irvine for a nice little two-game series, one at the Brent Event Center, hopefully. And then they play on Valentine's Day at the Galen Center. So that's going to be a really good test for USC. I want to see USC rise to the occasion. Then they open up Big West Conference play against Vanguard. Now, Vanguard, I'll get to Vanguard Concordia or Vanguard and Menlo a little later, but they've got a 2-game series in Costa Mesa and Los Angeles. And then this is where USC gets their first true test. Well, okay, second true test behind UC Irvine. They play at BYU. So BYU, that could be for second place. I mean, second place and third place is big because second place, I think, unless the MPSF changed up the format to an 8-team bracket where no one gets a bye, second place means you won't have to face UCLA until the MPSF tournament championship, which I think would be beneficial. And then second place also guarantees you not to play a ringer in the first round of said MPSF tournament. But playing BYU, that's going to be a fun one. BYU saw its season come to an end against USC, and they were hopeful to make the NCAA tournament. But I think for USC, they're gonna be facing a really tough BYU team. And then after BYU, they've got the Outrigger Invitational, and they're hosting Grand Canyon a couple times. Then they've got a 2-game series against Pepperdine. They're also hosting Stanford. And then the coup de grace, or the cherry on top at USC schedule. They play UCLA not only at Galen Center, but at Pauley Pavilion. Well, Pauley Pavilion first, then Galen Center. And USC, I want to see them really battle against UCLA. I mean, especially on the road. Like, that's going to be a very tough challenge for USC. I think they can do it. They got the talent and returnees to do so. But in my mind, this is going to be such a challenge for them. I mean, I'm not going to take anything away from UCLA. I think USC can really give them a battle, but can they pull out the win on the road or at home? That still remains to be seen. So there's that right there. Now, enough about USC. Vanguard and Menlo, you're probably wondering, well, who are those teams? Well, they're newcomers to the MPSF because the MPSF grew and Vanguard transitioned from NAIA to NCAA Division II, which, since there's no NCAA Division II in NCAA men's volleyball, they're kind of lumped into National Collegiate Men's Volleyball, aka NCAA Division I-2. So Vanguard and Menlo are pretty much slated to finish 8th and 9th. So there are going to be some growing pains with both of those teams, mainly Vanguard, just because they did lose, obviously, Ryan Smith to graduation and Will Anderson to graduation, but they're up for the test. I think they can. This is going to be a trying year for the Lions, but I think they can definitely rise to the occasion. Menlo is also kind of going to be that same way. I'm sure they lost quite a bit to graduation, and they would love nothing more than to have the players that really paved the way to them being such a powerhouse to partake in the NCAA Division I-2 men's volleyball. But I think for Vanguard and Menlo, it's going to be a trying year, and we don't expect too much from Vanguard or Menlo. But I think that both these teams are going to get their feet wet, and they're going to know what the MPSF is all about, because they're not playing the NAIA teams anymore. I'm sure they probably will. They'll probably schedule a few NAIA teams here and there, but if they want to survive in the MPSF, they got to schedule some big boys. Like, I saw Vanguard scheduling Long Beach State. That's a good barometer right there. That's a very good test for the Lions. So, and then UCLA, as we all know, they are the favorite to win it all in terms of the MPSF. So they start off the season officially when they play Fairleigh Dickinson and St. Francis. Then they've got the First Point Collegiate Challenge, which I think is going to be a true test for them. Then they've got UC San Diego and CSUN. Then they've got the Big Ten Challenge. And then mark a calendar for February 7th and February 12th. They play at Long Beach State, which was the place where they wound up winning national championship number 21, if I'm not mistaken. Either way, they did win last year's National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Championship. And then February 12th, that's when they'll be hosting Long Beach State. So, look, I'm going to keep it a buck. I really want to go to one of these matches. I know I'm visiting Texas, but I would like nothing more than to go to that rematch, because especially at the Pyramid, those are the type of matches that get filled up to the brim, especially at the Pyramid and also at Pauley Pavilion. I've never been to Pauley Pavilion before, so there could be a first time for that. And then UC Irvine's another good test. UC Santa Barbara, they should be better than they were last year. I think Santa Barbara can really shine in the Big West. Just going to throw that out there. And then UCLA, will be hosting Stanford. Then they've got Vanguard at Vanguard, and at Paul Pavilion. And good news for Vanguard fans and other volleyball teams. They don't have to play at Calvary Chapel High School. I'm pretty sure every team that faced Vanguard was throwing fits knowing that they were playing in a high school gymnasium. Vanguard's gymnasium should be done, if not is done, right now to be playing NCAA men's volleyball. So no more having to deal with a low ceiling and whatnot, and no more having to deal with the cramped court, which is kind of like an old school court. Nothing against it, but yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. Anyway, back to UCLA's schedule. They've got Pepperdine at Pauley Pavilion and at Firestone. Then they're playing at GCU, and then they host BYU, which I think, like, their last 4 games, BYU at Pauley Pavilion, and then USC at home, and then USC at Galen Center. So this is going to be a fun year for UCLA. Starting off the season, obviously they've got their Long Beach State, they've got their Ohio State and Penn State. Can't believe they're actually facing both of those schools twice, but I guess you need like the true strength of schedule, just because you want your strength of schedule to be ready for MPSF. Now, this year's MPSF tournament is going to be played in Malibu, so decisions. Should I go to said MPSF tournament in Malibu at Pepperdine University? That depends. But it's a time will tell process, and we'll just have to wait and see. All right, but that is going to do it for the MPSF portion of the show, as well as all the NCAA men's volleyball previews for the Power 4 conferences. We're going to take ourselves a quick little commercial break. When we come back, we've got some NCAA women's volleyball transfer portal action to discuss, and then we've got some Pro Volleyball Federation and LOVB volleyball to discuss, because they start next week. So keep it locked here. You're listening to Set Point here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after a word from Seal the Deal Wax Seals and iSports Radio.
Hey there, iSports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, iSports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at iSports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iSportsRadio.com. At iSportsRadio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the iSports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop, including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at iSports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making iSports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
That's right, everybody. Definitely check out IE Sports Radio on its website, as well as Seal the Deal Wax Seals and our other two sponsors, Vital Apparel and Plant Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. We appreciate them for being the official sponsors of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. All right, back with segment number 2. Hopefully y'all can hear me well. I mean, I am in a different location, as you all are seeing. This isn't my standard location, but I'm visiting Texas, and hopefully I can see you. I'll be able to see you all at the First Point Collegiate Challenge. Let's get on into the second part of the show. We have the notable NCAA women's volleyball transfer portal players that have been in the transfer portal and that have found a home. So the transfer portal is really heating up. This is getting really, really hot and intense. Like there's a lot of notable names. Like for starters, Tori Stafford just recently entered the transfer portal. She's transferring from Pitt, which I think is very, very fascinating, if you ask me. You also have Eva Hudson, who transferred from Purdue to Kentucky, Chloe Chicoine, who transferred from Purdue to Louisville, Kaylin Alexander, who transferred from Hawaii to Missouri. Then you've got other players, like there was a bunch of players that transferred from Texas, probably ones you haven't heard of. Gulsi Guchtikin, she transfers from Wisconsin to Tennessee. I think they had another one that was that transferred from Wisconsin over to Creighton, but unfortunately I didn't get a chance to put down her name. But yeah, the transfer portal, I don't want to go over everything. I just want to put these notable names up there just for those that have been living under a rock, or for those that are still trying to get over the NCAA women's volleyball hangover that was the championship. But for me, I'm going to try to do my best to continue to talk some NCAA women's volleyball. Obviously, the transfer portal is something I like to make note of, but I don't want to spend too much time on it just because you never know. I mean, when it comes to like the transfer portal, I mean, it is what it is. But I will also just say that I really would like for the NCAA men's volleyball to take the spotlight, just because for me, I am just getting ready for NCAA men's volleyball season. And then we're seeing all this NCAA women's volleyball news and whatnot. I mean, great that we saw a lot of good history being made in terms of NCAA women's volleyball, but NCAA men's volleyball needs to take the spotlight. Like, let us see some NCAA men's volleyball support and whatnot. So I'm not going to try to shove off or shove to the side NCAA women's volleyball, but I'm just going to say, let me focus on NCAA men's volleyball. Like, great that we're seeing all this great news regarding NCAA women's volleyball, but now we shall grow NCAA men's volleyball. And speaking of NCAA women's volleyball, here are some notables from this past season. Most consumed NCAA women's volleyball tournament on record, 1.3 billion minutes. And then second most watched NCAA championship ever, which had 1.3 million viewers. That was something I didn't go over, which I thought was really cool. So we had more viewers tuning in for that than the NCAA women's volleyball semifinals, which on average it was 1.2 million viewers. Most watched NCAA women's volleyball semifinals on record, 1.1 million viewers, which I think is awesome. Most viewed NCAA women's volleyball regional finals on record, 594,000 viewers, really cool. The most watched NCAA volleyball regional semis on record, 311,000 viewers, another good feat right there. Then most watched NCAA volleyball selection show ever, which had 268,000 viewers. Then we had the most viewed women's college volleyball regular season, which minimum 5 live games, that had 140,000 viewers. So a lot of good history being made in terms of NCAA women's volleyball, and it's only going to continue to keep on growing and growing. So you have that right there. And yeah, I know everyone is chomping at the bit to see the 2025 NCAA women's volleyball season, but you're going to have to wait for a little bit just because, well, for starters, you've got the transfer portal, and then you've got the professional volleyball leagues, which is the PVF and LOVB, which is actually a perfect segue to go into regarding our next little segment. So LOVB begins not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday, January 8th, when Atlanta hosts Salt Lake. Yeah, there's no names of these, so it's not like the Atlanta Argonauts taking on the Salt Lake what would be good? The Salt Lake Spartans. Yeah, we'll go with those. It's not going to be like a mascot name. It's just LOVB Atlanta taking on LOVB Salt Lake. So, yeah, that's going to be Atlanta hosting it. It's going to be at Gateway Center Arena. So most of these matches will be televised on ESPN Plus, or they'll be on LOVB's live, I think, YouTube page, or if not their website. Some will be on ESPNU, which I think is pretty nice. And then there are going to be a few matches. There's going to be one match on ESPN2, which is going to be played at Municipal Arena. So they haven't really finalized the schedule just yet, but there is going to be one match on Sunday, February 16th, being played on ESPN2, which I think that's going to be really cool. And then they've also got another match on ESPN2 on Saturday, March 29th, between Austin and Madison. And then on ESPN2 on Friday the 11th, I think it's going to be the LOVB semifinals, and then the LOVB championship. LOVB championship, I think, is going to be on ESPN2. If not, it's going to be on the LOVB live website or the live network. So, yeah, LOVB is going to be on national TV. That's when you know women's volleyball is growing, not just in collegiate volleyball, but in professional volleyball as well. But the first match will be televised, or the first matches of the season will be Atlanta versus Salt Lake, which is Friday or Wednesday, January 8th. And then the day after, you've got Houston versus Austin at Ford Bent Counter Epicenter. Nice little I-45 matchup right there, kind of. And then Friday, you've got Austin versus Madison, and then Houston versus Omaha. So both matches will actually be taking place at Ford Bend Center Epicenter. So that's a nice little doubleheader right there. So you get two for the price of one. So I dig it. I dig the what LOVB is trying to do. And then Omaha will be playing at the Liberty First Credit Union Arena. So sadly, it won't be in like the Bob or SoCal Arena. But it is what it is. And I know Omaha is going to be showing up and showing out. So there's that right there. So yeah, just some notables right there. Like, I'm not going to go full in-depth preview on this, but it is something worth noting just because LOVB is going to be in its inaugural season, and that first match is going to be on ESPN Plus. So if you have ESPN Plus, good for you. So there's that right there for LOVB. Now for Pro Volleyball Federation. So the first match will begin on January 9th when the San Diego Mojo will be heading down to Orlando to take on the Orlando Valkyries. I was going to say Magic City, but that's not true. So we haven't really gotten a preseason poll yet for all of us volleyball media members, but I will say, if I had to guess, I'd probably say Omaha would be the favorite. Omaha, maybe Atlanta. So we'll see. I mean, Atlanta was the favorite Omaha was the favorite last year by this much, and then Atlanta wound up winning the regular season crown only to fall to Grand Rapids Rise, where they eventually lost to Omaha, which eventually lost to last year's semifinalist, San Diego, which you got to feel bad for them. They had a 2-0 lead, and then they got reverse swept, all because the Omaha played Sydney Hilly following the early struggles of set number 1. So you have that. But yeah, first match is between the San Diego Mojo and the Orlando Valkyries. And then Friday, you've got the Atlanta Vibe versus the Omaha Supernovas. Oh boy, this is probably the matchup. This was the first matchup. Oh, and I meant to say CHI Health Center, but not DJ SoCal Arena, but I digress. But Atlanta Vibe versus Omaha Supernovas. This is probably the PVF championship that should have been, but unfortunately wasn't. So I think for Omaha, this was the inaugural match from last year, so I think this is going to be very fun. You'll probably be seeing a lot more of these on CBS Sports, if not FS1 and FS2, which I think is going to be pretty cool. So you have that to look forward to. And then also on Friday, January 10th, you've got the Grand Rapids Rise taking on the Vegas Thrill at Lee's Family Forum. And then Indy Ignite, the new team from the PVF, is going to be playing the Orlando Valkyries at Fisher's Event Center. So that's their inaugural match right there. And then the San Diego Mojo will play the Columbus Fury. So that's something else to look forward to. So you have that right there regarding the Pro Volleyball Federation. Again, next week is when the action starts. So I'll have kind of a little bit more of a full-on preview when it comes to the first match of the season, as well as the official, the preseason coaches poll right there. But that's going to do it for some Pro Volleyball Federation right there and Pro Volleyball altogether. So we'll take one last commercial break. When we come back, we've got some notable memories from Set Point, as I'll be going over that from 2024. Keep it locked here. You're listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
What's up, New York? This is Ricky K coming at you at the NY State of Sports, a new show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Listen to me every Thursday afternoon as we bring you the latest takes on the Yankees, Mets, Jets, Giants, Knicks, Nets, Rangers, Devils, and Islanders. Plus, you get some college hoops and what's the local sports events going on in the area. It's a state that never sleeps, so why not get the opinions and sports takes that never sleep? Again, every Thursday, 2 p.m. to the NY State of Sports. We'll see you then.
Are you a fan of Buffalo sports? Are you thinking of changing loyalties and becoming a Buffalo sports fan? Do you even know where Buffalo is on the map? Did you know Canada is closer to Buffalo than New York City? Welcome to the Buffalo Huddle, every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Patty Bax. This is a podcast designed for you, the passionate sports fan. I know you love your sports. Who doesn't? I cover Buffalo sports and so much more by bringing in the human elements. I call it Buffalo Sports with a Twist. Join me as we take a journey into the world of Buffalo sports. I guarantee you'll fall in love with Buffalo just like I did. Each week we start with an inspiration, question of the day, a Buffalo fun fact, and our weekly challenge to you, the listener. Come huddle up with me every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time for the Buffalo Huddle with Patty Bax on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. As we say in Buffalo, go Bills!
And we are back with the final segment of 2024 of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows, such as New York State of Sports with Ricky K and the Buffalo Huddle with Patty Bax, which I actually do want to give like a little bit of a heartfelt send-off to, because this week is actually going to be the last week of the Buffalo Huddle, which, you know, Patty Bax has just been a fantastic supporter of Set Point, and not just Set Point, but all of IE Sports Radio she's been an integral part of IE Sports Radio, and her show is absolutely amazing. It was on Spreaker, and Patty Bax is going to be transitioning into other things, which she'll be part of the IE Sports Radio blog, but she won't be continuing doing the Buffalo Huddle. But overall, I enjoyed listening to Patty's show. I think she does an outstanding job with the Buffalo Huddle, and Tuesdays, like I told her, are not going to be the same without her. And same with IE Sports Radio. It's not going to be the same without her. But overall, if you have any Buffalo fans, definitely tune into the Buffalo Huddle on Spreaker. Just look up Buffalo and then Huddle, and then you'll get to hear Patty back. So there you have it right there. So that's not the final send-off that I want to do. I have one more send-off, and that's some of the notable memories from 2024. So some notable memories that I had, or some notable moments that I had, were attending the First Point Collegiate Challenge, attending the National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Tournament. Unfortunately, I couldn't stay for all of the matches because I had a PA announcing duty that I needed to get to when it came to like the Long Beach State Belmont Abbey match, and then most of the Grand Canyon Ohio State match. But witnessing the history that was made with Grand Canyon finally winning an NCAA tournament, Belmont Abbey, or no, not Belmont Abbey, Fort Valley State making its first ever tournament appearance. That was fun right there. And then UC Irvine winning its first NCAA tournament match since 2013 when it last won it all with David Niffen. That was cool right there. So all in all for that was a fun little memory. And then going to the First Point Collegiate Challenge, hopefully I will be better prepared because I emailed their event director, Carter Castile, who I'm certain is related to Mitch Castile, but I digress. But yeah, attending First Point Collegiate Challenge was very fun, which is the reason why I'm going to be attending this year. So if you haven't bought your tickets, definitely do so. You won't be disappointed. I know it's only going to be 4 teams this year, but it's still high-level volleyball in terms of NCAA men's volleyball. And then seeing the First Point Collegiate Challenge was awesome, and we got to see a lot of high-level volleyball. Ohio State really shined and stunned UCLA in that one match. And then you had some good little other matches like Stanford looking good in its first true test. USC got to see Wes Smith blossom, and I can't wait to see Wes Smith blossom more now that he's hopefully going to be fully healthy. But yeah, First Point Collegiate Challenge was fun to attend. You also had the NC men's volleyball tournament that I attended at my alma mater, Long Beach State. And then another notable moment was attending the USA-Netherlands friendly match, which I thought was very fun. I mean, I got to attend all 3 matches, and I got to meet the Olympians. I got to meet Avery Skinner, Kathleen Plummer, Annie Drews, and whatnot. The only thing I kind of regret is not meeting the Netherlands coach and interviewing him, but I just kind of got chicken skin, and I feel the Netherlands want to just get to the airport and then just find its way back home. So there's that right there. And then you also had me attending the first ever AVP championships, which I know I wasn't really fully on board with attending a lot of AVP tournaments or AVP events. I did attend the Huntington Beach Open, but I didn't really get a chance to attend some AVP league matches just because I actually got sick during most of the AVP season in terms of like the AVP league. But yeah, that was pretty fun seeing the San Diego Smash win the first ever AVP championships. And what a great story that the San Diego Smash had. They were one of the bottom teams in the AVP, and then they rose to the occasion, snuck into the playoffs, and then knocked off the New York Nitro, and eventually wound up beating Dallas, which I thought was pretty cool as well. And during the AVP championships, we got to see the last hurrah of 2 legends, Alex Kleinman and April Ross, as well as Trevor Crabb. But yeah, Trevor Crabb, it was his final year as well. So yeah, it was fun seeing some of these legends right off into the sunset. So you have that right there. That was another notable. And then obviously making it to seeing some of the not under level, but the high school level matches, like the CIF Southern Section Girls Volleyball Finals, where Mater Dei repeated as champions. And they actually made history by becoming by winning their 8th CIF Southern Section Championship, which actually ties them with Santa Margarita and Newport Harbor for most CIF Southern Section Championships in girls volleyball. So don't know if anyone knew that, but there's a little Snapple fun fact. And then also attending the CIF state championship matches were Palos Verdes. After losing in the finals the past 2 seasons, they finally broke through and wound up winning their first ever championship, not just in state, but altogether. And they did this even though they suffered a tough loss in the CIF Southern Section finals. And I'm glad I got to see Palos Verdes in action. And then I also got to see Cathedral Catholic win the CIF state championship, which I forgot to mention. I did not go over the Max Preps Max Preps national champion in terms of like women's volleyball or girls volleyball. So, but Cathedral Catholic, seeing them win it all was amazing. I know people will probably question how they got the number 1 seed over Mater Dei, but it is what it is, and I'm not going to question it any further. But Cathedral Catholic rising back to the top was amazing. Yeah, the rankings were last updated on November 26th. So Byron Nelson is pretty much the consensus national champion, with Cathedral Catholic finishing at number 2, which is not bad at all. They actually jumped 5 spots after beating Mater Dei and winning the CIF state championship. And then Prestonwood Christian finished at number 3. Roncalli of Indiana finished at number 4. Divine Savior of Holy Angels, they finished 5. Alpharetta, they finished at number 6. Mater Dei finished at number 7. Xavier College Prep at number 8. Marist of Illinois at number 9. And then Bennett Academy of Illinois at number 10. So that's pretty much the Max Preps top 10. Don't want to go over the entire top 25 just because I'm still trying to reminisce over some memories of Set Point and whatnot. But yeah, I actually did want to mention to you all, I think it was the Cathedral Catholic match where there was one fan. He actually went up to me. He says, "Are you Teran Rodriguez of Set Point?" And I'm like, yeah, what's up, kid? And then he said, "Look, I just want to say I love the content you're putting out. I love everything that you do." And I think his dad was there as well. But I never even knew who this person was. But I kind of forgot his name, unfortunately. But the fact that he went up to me and he said, "I love your content. I love what you do for the game of volleyball. Keep up the good work." That really just made my week. It made my week and it made my year. So it's like, that's the thing that I live for. I live for people, let alone kids, who are the next generation of these top volleyball players, to tell me that. And it's like, wow, that really means a lot that you see my volleyball content. And if you watch my show, then awesome. But for him to say that really just made my week, and it made my month, and it probably made my year. I mean, all coaches pretty much say that to me. Say we love what you're doing with the game and whatnot. But for someone that's like a teenager to tell me that, who probably is a young volleyball fan, that really just made my day. And I could not have been more happy to have been told that he loves seeing my volleyball content on Instagram and on X and whatnot. It really just means a lot. So to the young fan that told me that they love seeing my content, thank you. That really does mean a lot. And thank you to the dad as well. So yeah, try not to get too sappy and emotional, but yeah, I enjoyed covering a lot of volleyball matches and events. I unfortunately could not cover the entirety of the Big West Conference tournament, but such is life. I mean, there were some other commitments that I had and whatnot, so unfortunately I couldn't cover all of the Big West Conference women's volleyball tournament, but it might be possible next year. I don't know where the location will be. I mean, the past 2 years have been at Long Beach State and UC Irvine, but not sure on where it's going to be, especially since Hawaii is going to be leaving the conference. Like, Hawaii and UC Davis are leaving the conference in the near future. Like, this next NCAA women's volleyball season is going to be the last time we will see Hawaii women's volleyball in the Big West Conference, which I'm pretty sure every team in the program is cheering. But yeah, eventually we're going to see the end of Hawaii women's volleyball, and I think they're heading off to the Mountain West Conference. And in Davis will be the same thing, I think, but they have 2 more years left. But I'll go over that a little bit later or sometime in the future. But that's it. That's going to do it for the entirety of Set Point this year, this calendar year. 279 episodes in. And I guess one more notable for Set Point is that We're live on StreamYard. So no longer on Spreaker, though I will upload my episodes to Spreaker, and I always do, where you can see it on all podcast platforms. But this is it. This is the end of 2024 for Set Point. But 2025 is the year I really want to get Set Point off the ground, just because I want to get more involved in the NCAA men's volleyball community. I mean, let's be honest. NCAA men's volleyball, like I mentioned, it needs to grow more. Please, for the love of all that is holy. So I want that to be a thing right there. Like, and if it means me collaborating with other volleyball content creators, then so be it. I would not mind. So yeah, definitely reach out to me, volleyball content creators and other things of that sort, whether it's sponsors or anything of that sort. So yeah, that's going to do it for the final episode of 2024 of Set Point. I definitely appreciate everybody for tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I appreciate you. And a salute to my boy, Marcus Los Grape. He says, salute. Thank you for popping into the chat room, my brother. And I promise you, Marcus, once Set Point reaches the big time, I will hook you up with some Set Point merchandise. I guarantee you, my brother. But yeah, thank you to Marcus for popping in to the live chat room. But for everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have a great new year. Be safe, be well, make smart decisions. As my friend Mike Pat would say, you could afford an Uber, Lyft, or any rideshare sooner than you could afford a DUI or anything else. But have a great rest of the holiday. Happy New Year. I will see you all next year. I'm sorry, I had to do that. But have a great week. Have a great week and enjoy some NCAA men's volleyball action. So I'll see you next year. Peace.